Hello, and welcome to the Alumni House. My name is Matt.
I'm Chad Quacker.
All right. Well, Chad Quacker, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Long day at work, but I'm here now.
Yeah, it is another fine Monday evening. Double Monday night football again for like at least the third time this season, might be the fourth. Um, so thank you for joining us for this week 7 review. I couldn't believe it when we were talking about it in the open or in the before we started that we were already in week 7. But let's go ahead and jump in. We got a lot to discuss. So why don't you hit us with the news and notes?
Yeah. So we've hit the point in the season where you're starting to see some coaches be let go, and we had some this weekend. So um, all right, Trent Bray from Oregon State was fired. Of course, he's 0-7. Um, Kind of a low buyout there, $4 million. Still a nice little deal there. Trent Dilfer from UAB, he was fired. He had a $2.4 million buyout. And the biggest news as far as coaches firings is James Franklin from Penn State with a $49.7 million buyout, which is the second largest of all time, only following Jimbo Fisher. So, um, that's I had heard that there was 5 openings uh, around the league, around NCAA football. UCLA, they fired Deshaun Foster very early in the season. Mike Gundy from Oklahoma State, Sam Pittman, Arkansas, and then the three that we just talked about. So,
Yeah, so the Franklin firing obviously was surprising to a lot of people. In fact, the only person I saw who said anything before it happened that seemed accurate was Todd McShay. Todd McShay, who used to be with ESPN. I saw a clip. You might have sent it to me, but I saw a clip where he on Saturday night was saying Penn State should fire Franklin, which I think most everybody else in the country thought was kind of out of left field. That, you know what that reminded me of? That reminded me a little bit of when Florida fired Dan Mullen, because he went to 3 straight New Year's Six bowls, and then had that bad season in his 4th year, and then after I don't know 3 or 4 losses, he was gone. Which was very similar. It kind of reeks of stuff going on in the background that we're not necessarily privy to. Obviously, what we are privy to is that that Franklin did not have a great attitude in the last few weeks. Made a lot of excuses and wasn't a good look for himself. But it's interesting. We had him on our list of coaches, potential coaches, and now he's definitely one of them because he's available. What I thought was interesting was that I thought, because I put James Franklin on my list of coaches who might go elsewhere, but I thought it was because he may just want a change of scenery. What I didn't anticipate was 3 straight losses and he just gets fired,
yeah.
And a couple other jobs to keep your eye open for. Florida and Florida State both maybe looking for a new coach. Now, with Norvell, his buyout is what? What did you say, $48 million? Or that was Franklin's? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Norvell's is over 50. I know that right now, like 51 or something like that, because I was looking at it yesterday. So he may be safe for the season just by virtue of how big that buyout is. Because Florida State took it on the chin with Willie Taggart.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know that they can necessarily afford to go get the candidate they want, because they would have to compensate the school for that, too. So Norvell may be safe. I think Billy Napier's definitely gone. Was kind of surprised it didn't happen this weekend, but he'll be another one. And another one that could come open is Hugh Freeze at Auburn. They played well against Georgia, but they went up 10-0 and then did nothing and lost the game 20-10. Mm-hmm. So, it's really interesting. So name the jobs that are open right now that are actually open.
Let's see. It was they have Stanford listed on Grok because he was fired back in March. So I'm not sure if it's got Frank Wright listed as interim coach. So I guess that's still an open job. UCLA, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Oregon State, Penn State, and UAB.
Okay. So then if let's just say Florida State, and Auburn all become available too, then you have between those three Penn State and maybe UCLA maybe. I think that job may have lost some of its value. But those are 4 top tier jobs that could very well be available. So we might see a crazy cycle this window. With a lot, because normally there's 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 top tier jobs open at the end of the season, but we're halfway through the season and we've got 1, 2 if you count UCLA, and another 2 to 3 likely to open up, and those are just the ones that I'm thinking of.
Right.
There definitely could be some others as well. So it's going to be a crazy, chaotic offseason, for sure. All right, so we have a bunch to talk about in a very short amount of time to do it. So we're going to hit some games, and then we'll talk about our weekend record and season record. So to start off in Conference USA, let's start with Jacksonville State, 29, at Sam Houston, 27.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So this was a Thursday night game here, and Jacksonville State came in at 2-3, 1-0 in conference. Sam Houston came in 0-5. So, Sam Houston is one of those programs that I think at the beginning of the season we were talking about maybe they could take a step forward this year, and they have not at all. This may be another job that comes open by the end of the season because they seem to be regressing instead of going forward. But they played a Jacksonville State team that's got a pretty explosive offense. Played them close the entire game. Jacksonville State had to score, 12 points in the fourth quarter just to pull out the 2-point win against a very downtrodden Sam Houston. They kicked a 52-yard field goal as time expired to win the game. So, it's not a good look for Jacksonville State, but Sam Houston came out swinging, really trying to get that first win of the season. It kind of seems like maybe they're playing for their coach or trying to play for their coach, but maybe they think that he's on the verge of getting fired too. It's just you see something like that, and you almost wonder if Jacksonville State overlooked them when they came in.
Yeah.
But they weren't really in a position to be overlooking anybody themselves either. So, that almost came back to bite them in the butt there in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what an epic game, and for some reason, did they do all of their games on Thursday? No, they did a couple on Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday and Thursday. This is that weird stretch of the season, because I remember doing this, when I was doing the reviews solo last year. For like 6 weeks, they didn't have a game on a Saturday. It was all like Tuesday through Fridays, mainly Tuesday through Thursdays.
You know what? This week starts the stretch where there's a game every day, right?
Well, it started last week, but yeah.
Were there Tuesday night games last week?
I think there was, yeah.
Oh, I
But
thought okay, I thought that was this week. Well, that's a great time of the year. The only bad thing about this time of year is that the WNBA literally just ended, and now the NBA is about to start. So, wish we had a little bit longer break between pro basketball cycles, but that's all right. All right. So the midshipmen, man, Temple showed some fight here recently.
yeah,
So Navy goes to Philly to play Temple and sneaks out of there 32-31.
yeah, sneaks out. I really figured, with the way Temple's been playing, with their defense, that Navy could just kind of come in here and you know lean on them with the run game. They showed the week previous that they could throw the ball if they had to. If that's not what happened in this game, um, I mean, Blake Horvath was still the lead and rusher for the midshipmen here, but they gave up 345 yards passing in this game. This was a game that I don't know if Navy came in thinking that it was just going to be an easy win, or maybe Temple was running the scheme that just didn't fit with their defense. That can happen when you just have a mixed match with your defensive philosophy as opposed to what the offensive team is running there. But you don't normally see Temple, or I mean Navy, give up a ton of yards on the defensive side unless it's like against like a power four school like Notre Dame, or something like that, But
Yeah.
against near peer opponents, they're normally a very stout defense. Last year they weren't like Army's defense last year was holding everybody to almost nothing. Their defense is a little looser last year, but they were still I think like a top 50 defense. This is not top 50 numbers they were giving up this weekend. So to come out with a 1 point victory, you know, on the road, a win's a win. But I mean, they had to score a touchdown with let's see, there was 39 seconds left in the game when quarterback Blake Horvath ran for a 51-yard touchdown to win it. So they didn't really leave themselves a lot of room for error in this game. This is a scary game if you're a midshipman fan, and
Mm-hmm.
you want to see them potentially make a playoff run. You know, this is one that I don't know how closely the committee looks at like your final scores and how impressive the wins were, but it's not a win that looks good on the resume. But a win's a win. It's not going to hurt them, but it may not help them. Over like a South Florida or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Well, South Florida may be out of it, but say a Memphis or somebody like that.
Well, don't they still just have the one loss? Because I'm pretty sure their only loss is to Miami, so they won't be out of it just by virtue of
Yeah, yeah.
of
I think
conference.
they lost two, but yeah, if they've only lost one, then let me get back here to. Yeah, they only got that one loss. Yeah, and they've had some impressive wins, including this past week. So
Yeah.
yeah. Now they may play head to head, so that may would resolve some of that. And the way South Florida's playing, especially ripping it through the air, uh, you know Navy may have to change the way they play for that game
Mm-hmm.
just to you know
Yeah, and South Florida's quarterback is pretty mobile as well, which is another element,
Mm-hmm.
to any game. All right, so let's move on to a game from last Thursday, which we actually talked about on our broadcast last week. Um, Tulane hosted East Carolina, and Tulane wins the game 26-19. Um, what were your thoughts on this?
I was surprised. East Carolina, there was a stretch where they were a really competitive football team. Like they weren't like playoff caliber, but they were conference contender caliber, and they seem to have kind of fallen off just a little bit. But Tulane's kind of been the at the very top of the league the last 5, 6, 7 years, and Tulane had to score 14 points in the fourth quarter to pull this one out. I was very surprised with the with the way Tulane played throughout this game, and I was kind of just keeping up with it peripherally because at the same time the Southern Miss game was on, and of course for me that was priority number one. But I was still very very interested in this game. Now Tulane, they won the game. They won the uniform game in this one as well. I'll give them that. But their uniforms were a lot more impressive than their overall play. Um, Now the quarterback,
That's funny. I was going to say I did not like their uniforms.
really, uh,
Yeah, there's something about that blue with the white and green predominant helmet. It just doesn't do it for me. I guess it's not predominantly white and green, but that green just kind of sticks out in a weird way. I think they have better uniforms than what they wore um,
mm-hmm.
in that game.
Jake Retzlaff, the quarterback for Tulane, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He carried them in this game because they had less than 100 yards rushing. Their leading rusher had 34 yards on 10 attempts, so that's not good. Um, he's kind of, from everything I've seen so far, he's him and Byron Brown from USF are kind of setting themselves up for a showdown on who's going to be Conference Player of the Year. Um, it's you know, offensively he seems to be kind of carrying Tulane right now, which you kind of expect that from your quarterback. But I mean, we've seen teams really lean on the run game a lot, um, where the quarterback is just kind of the game manager and makes a pass here and there. But Tulane really relies on their run game. I mean, on their pass game this year. So thank goodness for Tulane for him, slinging the rock this week because without him, they don't win this game.
Yeah,
This was if ECU had won this game, it would have been probably at least in the group of five, it would have been the upset of the weekend for me personally. Just because of the way Tulane's been playing as opposed to ECU.
yeah, yep. I agree. I was a little bit surprised about this as well. So all right, so let's move on to one that's near and dear to Quacker's heart. So Southern Miss tried really hard to give this game away at Georgia Southern.
Yes, they did.
So going into halftime, they were up 28-7, and then Georgia Southern outscored them in the second half, 28-10, for a final score of 38-35 in favor of the Golden Eagles. So Quacker, I know you got to watch a little bit of this kind of around our recording. What were your thoughts on that?
You know, I had it playing while we were on air, and I was really holding back because I was really excited. Every time we would score, and they were scoring at will in the first half. I mean, especially in the second quarter, they scored 21 points in the second quarter, and we got off the air. It was in the third quarter, and I think we had went up like 35-7, and I was getting really excited. And then Georgia Southern just started like just I mean, they were coming back with the fury, and I was getting really nervous by the end. And then the ESPN guys were talking about how last year when Huff was at Marshall, they had a big lead against Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern came back and won the game. And of course that was their only game in conference that Marshall lost last year, propelled them on. And I was like, I don't want that to happen to us though, you know,
Yeah.
like you know, yeah, there's a lot that we can learn from this game. You know, Southern's defense, they were getting shredded with the pass. Now the quarterback French, I forget his first name, but he's a fourth. So Jay French the fourth. He's not mobile like Brown for Southern Miss, like Byron Brown for Southern Miss, or the quarterback from like USF or some of these other schools. But he is a fairly mobile quarterback, and he was making Southern's defense come off the ball quite a bit. The run game really kind of carried the game for the Eagles, for the Southern Miss Eagles. You know, they're both the Eagles. It was Jeffrey Pittman was player of the game for Southern. He had 140 yards, 31 attempts, and he really closed out the game with a tough run where he carried the about half the Georgia Southern defense for about 6 yards to pick up a first down to close out the game there. But this was the performance that it was as a Southern Miss fan, it was really hard to just feel comfortable because I've seen, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen too many times where Southern would have the lead and they would collapse late.
Yeah.
And it felt like that again. I was like, oh, this can't be happening. Another coach and same result. But fortunately for Southern Miss, they held on, and there's a lot for them to learn from there. But and I with this coach staff, I have full confidence that they'll correct those mistakes and learn from it moving forward.
Yeah.
But this is a tough Georgia Southern team. They're 2-4, 0-2 in conference, but they're a tough team. Like I don't think that they're out of any kind of postseason hunt or anything like that. Like they still have the potential to make a bowl game just because their offense is very very explosive. So look for them to make a run toward the end of the season.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's head over to Troy at Texas State. This one went to overtime and shocked both of us. So Troy wins the game 48-41.
Yeah. Texas State scored 28 points in the first half and then got outscored the rest of the game. Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the first quarter, you're thinking, well, this is going to be a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
Texas State's going to walk off with this one. And quarterback for Troy absolutely went off. He had 415 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. He was 30 of 39, so he was efficient with it too. It wasn't like he was just out there. They didn't throw the ball 60 times. This is a very impressive offensive output for Troy here. Texas State ran the ball like crazy. Like they had over 600 yards or close to 600 yards on offense. They had 326 yards on the ground, which is hugely impressive. That's the numbers you expect to see from like Navy and Army, and they were really kind of grinding it out. But this was it's a shootout, but it's a different kind of shootout. Usually when you see a score that high, it's because both quarterbacks have thrown for 400 plus yards, and the run game's forgotten about. But in this one here, it was Texas State leaned on their run game a lot, and it was all pass game for Troy.
Yeah.
But hey, kudos I mean, Troy's a very good team this year. They're 2-0 in conference play. Texas State is 0-2. But this Texas State team is one that everybody's really looking at because they're the ones that are leaving for the, supposed Power 5, with the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Which is, what was it, the Mountain West 12 or whatever?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or the State 12.
Yeah. So, it's just going on there in San Marcos, but they started out the season really hot, and they have really faltered. Kind of like Penn State, they really faltered here the last few weeks, and they can run the ball, but their defense just cannot make stops.
Yeah.
And they've got to get that figured out in the second half of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely a huge surprise. So speaking of big surprises, turns out maybe Florida State was what we thought they were, which was, I think most of us, and I won't speak for Quacker, but I know that I thought coming into the season, Florida State was not going to be 2-10, but they were going to be, 6-6, 7-5, something like that. But I, like everyone else, after they did what they did to Bama, drank the Kool-Aid a little bit and was thinking that they were they had really turned it around and righted the ship. But as it turns out, they look about like a 500 team. So, of course, we're talking about unranked Pitt going to then 25 FSU and winning the game 34-31. And I don't know if you saw it, but a fan posted a picture 8 minutes before the kickoff and said something like, "I know this is a noon kick, but this is a pathetic showing from the student section 8 minutes before kickoff." Now, if you've ever been to a college football game at 11 or noon, you'll know that the student section doesn't really fill up until middle of the first quarter-ish. Mm-hmm. But this was bad. I mean, it looked like really empty. And that was before the loss. So looks like Florida State is headed towards another mediocre season when we thought, towards the beginning of the year, maybe they were going to have another really good year.
Yeah, they look like, a playoff team to start the year, and they're another team that, because of their current play, their coach is kind of sitting on the hot seat, at least from the fan perspective. The administration, with that buyout, $58 million, they're kind of sitting there with their hands tied. I mean,
Oh, is it $58 million?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was 51. But 58's even worse.
Yeah. I mean, once you get over 50, does it really matter? But
right.
This is they got to get this figured out, and I can't figure Norvell out myself. Because he'll have like a good season, then a bad season. A lot like we talked about with Shane Beamer, a good season, a bad season. This started out with a really good season, and it's just falling off a cliff. And he's got to get this figured out now.
Well, think about this. The last time they won a conference game was Saturday, September 21st, 2024, 14-9 at home versus Cal.
So over a year.
That is crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because for a long time, Florida State ran the ACC. I mean, like it was basically them, and yeah, so
pretty much. And looking at their remaining schedule, they've got Stanford at Stanford, which doesn't even kick off until 10:30. Then Wake Forest at home, at Clemson, home against Virginia Tech, at NC State, and at Florida. So, I mean, I could easily see 3 or 4 more losses or 3 or 4 more wins. I mean, because it's not like they're getting blown out. All right, so they've lost. 3 games in a row, and the worst of those losses was 46-38, but that's a little deceptive because it was in 2 overtimes. Then they lost to Miami by 6, and they lost to Pitt by 3. Now, the problem is both of those were home games. No one's going to bat an eye at them losing to Miami, especially they were getting destroyed by Miami early and sort of came back in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I could see another 6-6 type season for them. I mean, I could see them losing to. I think. Well, they will lose to Clemson. I think they could lose to Virginia Tech. I think they could lose to Florida, depending on if they still have a coach. And they, NC State. So, yeah, that's wild. But looks like we said in the open, Norvell is likely safe because of his particular buyout situation. All right.
Yeah, that's a lot like Brian Kelly at LSU. Now, he's not on the same type of hot seat that Norvell is because he's not had losing seasons. But if you ask, LSU fans, he's not doing what they expect, and and I was there Saturday night and I was hearing the boos, when they were on offense, and I heard some fans saying we need to get Todd Fields, the owner of Raising Cane's, we need to get him to come off the money for the buyout for this, because I think his is right around the same as Norvell's, if not a little higher. But when you sign these coaches these massive contracts, and you kind of have to get certain coaches away from a program like Notre Dame, or that's one of those things. It's a risk you take where if things don't work out, where you're playoff contention or winning championships, in a very short window of time, the fans get restless when they see the kind of money that's being put out.
Yeah, and in LSU's case particularly, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but that was the best coaching hire of that cycle, and they took a coach who did nothing but win in Cincinnati and did nothing but win at Notre Dame. Now, he didn't win a title at Notre Dame, but he got to a title, and he got to a couple of playoffs. But yeah, so I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we're talking about schools letting coaches go on $50 million buyouts now. I mean, it's nuts. I think I read somewhere, and you may have actually said this earlier, Quacker, as well, but James Franklin's buyout has become the second highest buyout in the history of college football behind Texas A&M. So, all right. So we're going to do a couple rapid fires real quick, and then we'll spend a little bit more time on Alabama and Missouri. First, kudos to Arkansas. Arkansas goes to number 12 Tennessee, loses the game 31-34. Now this is Bobby Petrino 2.0 Arkansas. Kind of get the feeling this was more of a letdown than it was Arkansas just lighting the world on fire. But want to shout them out. Did you have any thoughts on that one?
I was really surprised by how close this game was. I feel like I looked up at one point and it was like 31-17. I don't know that for sure. And then I looked up again. I was in the stadium. If anybody's been in a large stadium, your cell phone service, it says you have bars, but nothing works. And so I was getting nothing as far as like trying to keep up with anything on my phone. So I was just having to kind of keep up with whatever was on the ribbon boards. And the next thing I saw, it was 34-31. I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
So
if you have extra money, you can pay for the little in stadium towers they have to get your signal boosted, but that's about the only way. Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy game. So another rapid fire I want to talk about. Number 6 Oklahoma puts up 6 at the Red River Shootout against Texas. Texas wins the game 23-6. Arch shows a little bit of fire at the end of the game, waving bye to the Oklahoma fans. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
I I picked Texas to win the game. I was probably as shocked as anyone that they did win and that they won the way they did. But I think the reason they won is why I picked them. I just didn't think it would happen the way it did. I felt like Mateer would not be, 100%, which definitely he wasn't. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
I felt like Texas would use this as a get-right game, being a rivalry game and just having, a loss to a not very good team. I say not very good. I mean, Florida was competitive against Texas A&M, who is probably one of the best teams in the country, but they're still 2-4. So, I mean, say what you want about that. So, another great game. So, congratulations to Texas. Quick thoughts on that?
Yeah. This is the game. I wasn't. Um, I was a little surprised that Texas won. I picked Oklahoma in this one. I didn't want to pick Oklahoma in this one, but I just the way Texas's line had been playing, it was so porous that I didn't see them being able to run the ball and protect Arch. And
Mm-hmm.
there were times in the game where they still couldn't, but they did enough to win the game. They scored 20 points in the second half, and their defense did what their defense was supposed to do and shut down the Oklahoma offense in the second half. They picked off Mateer 3 times. If he's 100% healthy, I don't know that you have that same outcome, but he wasn't. And, so now they both have the same record in conference, and that's, another year of bragging rights for the Horns. I think that's 2 in a row, maybe more than that. I know they beat them last year too, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 2 or 3 in a row that they've got now, but
Yeah, I can't remember. I can go back and look. So while I look at that, why don't you just give us your quick thoughts on Washington State almost pulling a crazy upset?
yeah, I don't think we even talked about this one last week. No, we did not, because I think we both thought that Ole Miss would win by about 60 in this one. They won by 3, and this is one where they had to scrap and claw the entire game. Washington State had the lead in the first quarter, and I don't know. I mean, Ole Miss is coming in off a bye week, so it wasn't like they were, unprepared. They shouldn't have been unprepared for this game. But yeah, it was not. Having not watched it because I was driving and listening to the Texas Oklahoma game. Um, I was completely surprised with this final score. I really thought Ole Miss would win this one, and for a while they were losing, and I was just like, we're fixing to see a huge upset in college football here
Yeah.
because Washington State's a Pac-12 team, Pac-2. This 3-3 record now. I mean, they're playing okay, but this isn't Washington State from when Leach was there, when they were constantly, a high ranked team or a ranked team, and were putting it on like an Ole Miss, where they would go in and upset a team, but they haven't been that team in a few years. So
Mm-hmm.
seeing them do that, I was very shocked, and Ole Miss found a way to win. That's all that matters. I mean, they dropped in the polls by I think a spot, but they got to win. They're everything they have. All their goals are still in front of them. So good for Ole Miss there. But man, you can't if you lose a game or two, later in the season, and the committee looks at this game, they say, well, they won, but Washington State wasn't a very good team, and they barely beat them,
Yeah.
and they may put somebody else, over them. So,
Well, they could, but I think that would take them having 2 losses, and right now they don't have any. But I do agree.
That's what I said. Yeah.
I thought you were saying if they took one more.
No. I said if they took a couple losses.
Yeah.
Going.
Okay, I agree with you. Yeah. All right. So, best game of the day probably Bama. Number 8 Bama goes to Missouri. Number 14 Missouri and wins the game 27-24. So I didn't get to watch a whole lot of this game, but what I did watch, it was very competitive, and it kind of, it was kind of blow after blow. By the way, since 2020, the Red River shootout is 3-3, so they each have 3 wins, and Texas has won 2 in a row.
2 in a row, okay. Yeah, I knew they'd won 2. I couldn't remember if they won that one 3 years ago or not. So, all right. But yeah, I was watching this game. I watched this whole game. It was a very good game, and I didn't have a lot of confidence in Missouri going into this game, but the way they were playing, when they started out ahead, and they went into halftime, they were only down by a touchdown, but they looked like they're really getting outplayed. And Eli Drinkwitz, he did some halftime adjustments and got the team moving again. Like the offense had just stalled out, and he got them going again. Ahmad Hardy, the running back? He's the leading rusher in the SEC. He only had 52 yards on the day, no touchdowns. The leading rusher was the quarterback, that Bo Prabula, whatever his name is.
That's right.
He had 2 interceptions. If he didn't, have those 2 turnovers, Missouri probably pulls the upset here. But the Alabama defense did what Alabama, what they seem to always do. They take your best player and just shut them down. And they did that to Hardy, and they were limiting the big plays. You had that one touchdown that Norfleet, the tight end, caught. He had a 26-yard touchdown on the first drive, and he only caught 2 more passes, and neither one were for more than just 6 or 7 yards. So they really were doing a good job of limiting damage done with big plays and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely. Say what you want. Eli Drinkwitz is. He's put together a good program there. He may be a guy. For a long time, I kind of thought he was a little bit of a fraud, but I'm starting to think, they're on track for, I think, like their 3rd or 4th straight 10-win season. So he may be a guy that unless he just wants to stay in Como, could be a guy that's a name on some bigger programs' radar. So
I've already heard him on some people's list for Penn State.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know where he's from, but I feel like he might have Big Ten ties. So, but yeah, he's definitely going to be up there because he's been winning at a place that's not always. Missouri's had good teams, but it's not always easy to win at. So, all right. So that is the week in review. So now let's talk about our season record. So coming into the week, Quacker had hold on, I didn't pull this up. Sorry, guys. Quacker had a record of 30-22, and I was 25-27. Quacker beat me by a game this week. Yes, by 1 game this week. So Quacker went 9-3. I went 8-4, and that brings our season totals to Quacker is 39-25 on the season, and I am 33-31. So I'm finally above 500, but still not beating you. So, yeah. So and interesting. Now we are not quite halfway through because of the whole 2-bye thing, but we're halfway through in terms of most teams have played 6 games. In fact, I think all of them have, except maybe Notre Dame hasn't. I don't know. There's 1 or 2 teams that have like weird setups that may not have gotten in their 6th game. But we didn't even start. Miami, yeah, but we didn't even start tracking these until like week 3. So, lot of room for both of them to go. So that's all we've got for tonight, guys. We want to thank you for joining us and remind you that every Wednesday we do Alumni House Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays we review the weekend that was, and Thursdays we preview the upcoming season. And then on Wednesdays, we do an NFL podcast called Southbound, where 2 depressed Saints fans talk about the NFL and the NFC South. Speaking of which, the Falcons beat the Bills this evening, which who saw that coming? But anyway, yeah. So encourage you to check that out. That's every Wednesday night on this channel. So once again, thank you guys for joining us. Quacker, tell people where they can find the show.
Oh, before I do that, Matt, I saw for you, preseason rankings dropped for men's college basketball today.
Oh yes, yeah, I did see that. And he said for me, because if you're new to the show, I probably like college basketball as much as college football. It's really close. So I did see that, and we'll have to run through that. Tell you what, I'll pull it up real quick. We'll run it. Tell people where they can find the show, then I'll hit that before we leave.
So you can find us on our socials. We are on Facebook, on Twitter. So Facebook and Instagram have the same. It's Alumni House Podcast. Twitter is Alumni House Pod. And, of course, we are on streaming on here on YouTube and on Twitch. It's Alumni House Podcast as well.
Yep. All right. So, and our Twitter handles are in front of our faces or next to our faces. So check those out. So the brand new hot off the press AP Top 25 for men's basketball is as follows. At 25, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Creighton, Michigan State, Gonzaga. At 20, Auburn. A little surprised to see them ranked with Pearl being gone, but, you know, retain basically the same staff. Kansas is at 19, Tennessee 18, Illinois 17, Iowa State 16, Alabama 15, Arkansas 14, Arizona 13, UCLA 12, Louisville 11, Texas Tech 10, Kentucky 9, BYU 9, BYU 8, Kentucky's 9, Michigan is 7, Duke is 6, obviously losing a lot of power to the draft last year. St. John's is 5, UConn is 4, Florida is 3, Houston is 2, and Purdue is 1.
How about that? The Boilermakers at 1 to start the season.
I think they've been preseason number 1 like the last 3 seasons. I think they were preseason number 1 last year. I could be wrong, but I kind of thought they were. So, but yeah. All right, going to be really exciting. Don't forget to check us out on Southbound and then Thursday for our Week 8 preview. You guys have a wonderful evening, and we will see you guys next time.